So this is part 2 of, the in-depth tour of the synthesis of the System 8. So this one is about the LFO and the filters. Now that we looked at oscillator 1, 2, and 3 in the mixer, let's look at the LFO because there's some cool, unexpected offer in this one. Look at that. You've got variation 1. Again, you get this knob here, variation 1, 2, and 3. Now, variation 1 means that it's in single LFO, it's a standard LFO. So we'll do that. Then we switch to 2, then it's an LFO created by using a separate second LFO to apply frequency modulation to the same LFO waveform as variation 1. So for what I understand, the LFO itself receives modulation. So it's an FM modulated LFO now being a modulation to your destination. So pretty weird modulation. So we'll try these, see what it does. And the third one, it's a resonant pulse LFO, resonanced pulse LFO. It's a pulse waveform with resonance, and the waveform knob, when you change it, selects the frequency of the resonance. So we'll try that. Let's do something that is obvious. Let's say the filter. Filter is always fun to modulate. And if we go and put it halfway, because if we send the filter halfway here, okay, we hear that. Get pretty clear. Okay, so this is the first one, sine wave. Second one, triangular wave. Not a huge difference. We hear the sawtooth goes up, down, up, and drops. So the sine wave, the sawtooth, sorry. The square wave, 2 steps of the square wave. The assemble and hold, which is random, but with steps. Let's go faster, it's going to be more obvious. Goes between different steps. You hear the steps, and you go random. Same thing with the gliding. Kind of randomized gliding. Okay, go back to the first one. Just sine wave, and then we'll try variation 2. Oh, this is okay, now I get it. There's an LFO modulating the LFO, so this one goes from fast, slow, fast, slow, fast, slow. More complex LFO right away. So the triangular wave in this case. Now the sawtooth. Interesting. It goes faster and faster and faster and faster. And then it's going to slow down again. Square wave. It's an interesting thing. Surprising, but interesting. Now this, fast, normal. Okay. The random, fast and slow. So there's LFO on the LFO. Kind of weird, but cool. I mean, I imagine different ways to use it. Now let's try the third one, which is a pulse resonant waveform. See with the speed. Oh, it resonates. It changes 2 steps, but it resonates. Oh, this is cool. This is the nicest one of them all. This is really nice. Now imagine that this can be synced to the tempo, because when you move this, the value here is in tempo value. It's an eighth of a note. quarter note, half a note, a whole note. Oh, this is cool. I like this thing. This little bang at the end. So if it's musically in sync with the tempo, it could be really interesting to have that little vibration at the end. Right now I'm modulating the resonance, so that's why we hear this. But there's also the fade time. Fade time basically means how much time it's going to take before it starts doing the modulation. Let's go back to. So let's say you do something like this. You put some fade on it, you don't hear it, and then it fades in. So you could have the effect of the vibrato or the tremolo after you sustain, because that's it, you give time to the fade to start happening. If not, it starts as you play. Now the other thing that is interesting is you get a key trigger. Key trigger means it's always going to trigger the LFO, starts from 0, cross 0 and start going up as you press a key. So the movement will always be the same every time you press a key. It's almost like an envelope in a way, but a cyclic envelope, because it starts always at the same time, whereas if you don't have it, you're going to get it when you're hitting it. Now, the other thing that is fun is the trigger envelope. It means every time you're going to cycle through the LFO speed, it's going to trigger the envelope here. So if my envelope does this, so instead of having the LFO having just an open and close kind of gating sound, you're going to have the movement of the envelope if you want. Interesting, really interesting, this trigger envelope. Now, let's switch right away into the filter, because this filter has, again, this traditional stuff like cutoff and resonance, envelope, amount, key following, if you want the filter to open and close following the keys, the attack, key, sustain, release, traditional stuff you have in a synth, subtractive synth. You've got a separate high pass filter on top of the low pass filter here. So we got the two at the same time, which is interesting, because you can have a combination of the two sounds. So you can cut the low or cut the highs, or the two, and have a very, very narrow sound. The low pass here is interesting because there's 6 different ways or 6 different slopes. Minus 24 dBs, minus 18 dB, so 18 dB slope, which is that's an odd one. That's the 18, you don't see that often in a synthesizer. It's actually the slope of a TB-303. That's why it sounds a little bit different, because usually you have minus 24, minus 12, maybe minus 6, and that's it. Minus 18 was for the TB, and almost no other synth outside of those who want to mimic the TB-303 have a minus 18. Now on the other side, you've got an I-pass, minus 12, minus 18, minus 24. Now notice there's no minus 6. Well, that's the Roland synthesizers. The Roland filters are usually minus 12 and minus 24, which is, very beefy and very nice to cut, with the resonance and all. And this one also is a very nice. Now, if you want to know, is it resonating by itself? We're going to send noise through it. So the self-resonating in this one is I would say soft, because it doesn't resonate that much. So that's the low pass and high pass stuff in variation 1. Now if you go in variation 2, now what you have is a sideband. Oh, here is better. You hear the sideband here. You hear this. If you put the resonant on too much, you kind of lose the sideband reaction. That's a nasty sound. It's not for everything, but it means you can do these weird space sounds. Third one is a variation of the System 1. So if you have a System 1 synthesizer and you want to sound this one like the System 1, oh, this is it. You see? Listen to this sound for the resonant. And this is less aggressive, but this is a lot more aggressive. So if you want a keyboard to follow the keys. So the System 1 only has low pass, so only the 3 low pass. So a little slightly more aggressive than the one from the System 8. And the fourth is now you're in Jupiter 8 mode. So this is the filter. And then you only have the low pass, I think. So it's a slightly different. And the fourth one is the Juno. Oh, it's so low. Why is it so low? So it's really low pass again, no high pass on this one, because high pass is the one under it. Okay? And then you have variation 6, which is form and filter. And every of these little steps here, you're choosing between 2 formant. And then 7, same thing, but there's 3. That's just a fun one. So you've got these 2 format one. And the last one, 8, is the arm. Harm. You use a feedback delay to varies the overtone. Okay, how do we do this? So the high pass then cutoff operates at a low pass, high pass knob. Okay, like on a DJ console. High pass, low pass. Put it in the middle. very, very cool. Never expected that to this. Interesting. Very cool. So this is part of the filter, some of the advanced stuff, you know, the 8 different variation of this. So there's a lot of things that you can find just by playing with this. And again, the combination of all of this makes it into a very powerful synthesizer. So that's all the reason why I love the System 8. It's just a very powerful, you know, subtractive synth, very simple. You can say one knob, one job, because most of it, you know, you can just look at it and play with it. It's very easy. The only thing you need to remember is the variation when you change. So you could have a little cheat sheet. But still, when you change it, okay, you've got the information on screen. So you change it here, variation 1, it says, okay, this is for a sideband filter, and this is for System 1, this is for Jupiter 8. You have it on screen, and then when you turn this now, it says what it is. Oh, it goes -24, -18, -12, and then it doesn't work. Okay, so these are deactivated, you know. So right away you know what it is. If you go here and you change variation here, it says, okay, variation 2, and then you change this one, it says, okay, it's FM11, it's FM 1.5. So all of the stuff that is in the manual, you have it on screen. So it's very easy to remember. If you don't, I mean, you don't have to remember it, you just have to look at the screen. It's going to tell you what it is. So very quick to use. Now, I'm curious to see, because there's the vocoder input. I haven't used it as much, so that's going to probably be my next video. I've got a lot of things I want to practice and test on this. The effects, I'll show you this in a later video, is really powerful. The step sequencer, which is very cool as a step sequencer for notes, but also as a motion sequencer. So the fact that you want to have control, let's say over like the cross modulation, which doesn't have an LFO assigned to this, you can do it with steps. So that's a cool thing. And I'm going to see what we can do from the input. Of course, the vocoder, we'll test it out, see how it works. But also, it seems that anything you put in, like a drum or another synthesizer, you could also affect through the filter. That's kind of the basic stuff you want to be able to do, but also through the effects. So maybe I can actually use my Arturio Micro Freak and use it through this, because the Micro Freak has no effects, and then use the delay of this one, and that could be really cool. So I'm gonna, you know, test other ways to do it. And then there's the trigger outs and trigger in, and well, I think I'm gonna have a lot of videos to do. That's it, guys. I hope this is actually useful, and see you soon. Stay safe, make my music. Cheers.